Um, and my talk today is entitled Letting Go, Letting God, the Only True Path to Joy. It was the most powerful truth that I tried to instill in my children, that they are the most powerful people in their world. Let me say that again, that they were the most powerful people in their own world, because they alone controlled how they responded to anything that happened to them, whether it be hurtful behavior of their schoolmates or the external world. And that they did not control anyone but themselves. And that lesson, I thought, would serve them well for the rest of their lives if they could absorb it and apply it. If they tried to control their world through manipulation and external power, it led to a path of pain and misery. And pain I have known, or trying to do that and still do. As with all my talks, this one really is directed to me. It's a lesson for myself. And to the extent it applies to you or you can use it, then so much the better. The title, as I said, is Letting Go, Letting God, the Only Path to Joy. But an alternative title could easily be, Is All in Divine Order or Not? Where do you stand? We often hear or even use the phrase, let go, let God. One of my favorite hymns we sing in church is, I release and I let go. And I've even burst into song from the podium when that felt right. And some of you know and can recall that our own Reverend Eileen closes our service prayer circle with, we release our prayers unattached to specific outcomes. We release our prayers unattached to specific outcomes, which is letting go and letting God and knowing that all is in divine order. And this or something better, for we know not what is in store for us. It is a true adventure. It is the mystery of life. So either all is in divine order or it isn't. And then that means that we have the controls. We've got the steering wheel. And if that's true, it's a long, hard journey ahead. And I know that from the path I've been on, that if I'm in control, or I believe I'm in control, and it's my job to exert influence to try and get results that I want, then that is misery, for I am not able to do that. And I've invested myself and my heart on a fool's errand, really. In fact, it was this very conundrum for me. Why is this all happening? What does this all mean that led me to unity? And I chose this topic because control or attachment to outcome is a regular theme in my life and the source of most, if not all, of my pain. It is also one that I've watched grip our country and many that I'm close to. As some of you know, I'm an attorney, and it is an open question whether I became an attorney because it best facilitated my need to control. But the truth is, I think my drive to control my environment fueled my interest in being a lawyer. Worse yet, I'm a trial attorney, and the result of my work is often black or white. I either win or lose. And that's a hard reality for my clients and myself. If you have control issues, you know it if you are being honest with yourself. However, in the times I have truly embraced letting go and letting God, I have found my true freedom and joy. For then I can just focus on my path and what is mine to do and know that the result is beyond me, and it is true freedom. I can put my fingers on the origins of my need to control the outcome. It started with my entree into competitive team sports, where winning, also known as being attached to the outcome, was everything to me. Because in team sports, you necessarily depended on your team. I wasn't a very good teammate. And one day my father bluntly reminded me of that. I was about 11 years old on a baseball team. I was the pitcher. And I was sitting in the dugout, no doubt berating my teammates or pointing out some errors that other people had made when I felt from behind through the cyclone fence, the fences that have, they're made of wire and they have holes in them. I felt my uniform being tugged from behind. It was my father who, in no uncertain terms, told me that I needed to pipe down and be a better teammate because what I was doing was ugly. So I transitioned to tennis, an individual sport, because I alone could control the outcome. But for me, the most poignant and painful manifestation of my pain from trying to control the outcome, control others' behavior, came from my numerous failed attempts at trying to stop my parents from drinking. The rage and the sorrow I felt is palpable to this day if I go there, and it is the deepest rage that I have ever felt, and I was a teenager. It was my first, but certainly by no means my last lesson that deep attachment to outcome was the source of my soul's torment. Said another way, that my want of a particular outcome was the root of my pain and was the root of my misery. Now, this was when I was a teenager, and I had not had a spiritual realization that there was a different way to look at the events of my life and the events of what unfolded around me. Attachment to outcome necessarily means that there is something you or I want, which is the outcome, whatever that thing is. It means I'm not really okay with whatever happens. Want means a specific result, like money, like control of the outcome, the circumstance, the result. And by putting your eggs in that basket, your joy is conditioned on whether you get that thing or the result comes out the way you want. This whole mindset creates its own societal problems, which was the subject of my last talk regarding capitalism. And I firmly believe that want is the source of all misery when defined as I have. This is not something I thought up on my own. It's been a Buddhist, Islamic, you name it, traditional way of thinking. That not being happy with where you are right now, meaning something else outside of you, that want, will always bring misery because you will never be where you need to be. You will never be in the moment. You will never feel joy because it's always something else outside of you. And that is a losing proposition. For me, the most powerful and common source of my pain, anger, judgment comes from outcomes that I cannot control, but that I have invested my intellect, my heart, and my soul, and my sense of self-worth into, as my wife pointed out. I say this in all seriousness, even though we were talking about it just before we started. I am a Michigan fan, and my team lost badly last night, and I got angry. And I asked, hopefully with no attachment to outcome, my partner, wife, who was sitting next to me, how can you watch this and not get angry? I was hurt for a lot of reasons. I was hurt for myself. I was hurt for the players on the field. And Yvette said something to me that rang very true, which is I have tied my self-worth to their performance, which is what I did as a kid when I'd berate my teammates. If Michigan does poorly, somehow that reflects on me. I've internalized it. And it's painful. And that's just a football game. And when I do that, it doesn't go my way. I bring upon myself misery and pain. Who knew? So here's the choice. Do we micromanage the universe and all that comes into our life or mind and live or die by that result? Or do we do what is ours to do, live in the moment with a grateful heart, be the change that we want to see in the world, and know that life unfolds for a reason and that the universe and God gives us what we need and when we need it? Is the outcome that matters? Is it the outcome that matters? Or is it the journey that is what makes a spiritually awakened life? My proposition is that it is the journey. It is the process. It is the path that we walk that nurtures our divinity. Not the destination, but the journey and the adventure that is our spiritual inheritance and bounty. It is want or desire that is the source of all misery. Want of a specific outcome, a job, more money, a different partner, doing it my way, which is the right way, or the recent biggie to agree with me politically, or having the right candidate win. How many times have you heard or said, how can people vote, believe, support, fill in the blank in the last 3 months, the last 4 years? And when we don't get what we want, how do we feel? I mean, really feel physically. Think back to a recent instance when you were so vested in the outcome that your chest was tight, it burned, it hurt, or your throat was constricted, or your jaws clenched because you didn't get what you wanted, or you were worried that you wouldn't. Is that letting go? I ask you to take a minute in the quiet to call to mind an instance that is powerful for you, where you were so vested in the outcome that it hurt, or you couldn't sleep, or you kept worrying about it such that it interrupted your thoughts and activities. For some, it was the election, but there are many examples that challenge the frightened parts that need to have its way. So please just take a minute. Bring that up. Try and recall the feelings. Maybe it's here now. For me, it's palpable. It's just on the edge almost all the time. But back to my title, that the only true path to joy is letting go and letting God. Why are we joyless by clinging to control? It's because we don't actually have control, and we know it. Sure, we might manipulate, coerce, bully, threaten, bribe, whatever it takes, but to get momentary control, we often use less than a loving part of our personality or act out of fear. It is impossible to feel true joy if you have achieved some outcome through a frightened part of your personality or used fear-based tools to manipulate. Furthermore, attachment to outcome will never end. There is always the next thing. The fight to control never ends. It's an exhausting and poisonous cycle. But knowing in any moment that you're acting or thinking of from a space that all is in divine order versus being vested in the outcome is not usually that obvious, I'm sad to say. There are other hurdles to letting go of the outcome. Many times, we are not present in the moment or acting unconsciously. We're on autopilot. And if you're not present, if I'm not present in the moment, then I'm lost. And even if we are aware or present, we might feel we are doing our highest good, when maybe if we took a closer look at our motivation, it was not as pure or consistent what we would like it to be of accessing our divinity. That certainly is true for me. I can believe that I know what is best and fair and just, equitable. And sometimes I'm just really trying to get what I want, and it's a rationalization. And most of us walk that line every day as a parent or a sibling, a partner, an employee, and fill in the blank. The key is always being conscious and present to what your intention is. And as that intervention we just experienced shows, it is my belief that God gives me repeated opportunities to examine and grow through personal challenges, specifically those crosses to bear that are particularly challenging. And I liken it to going to physical therapy for a hurt back or a specific body part. So too, if I have issues with attachment to outcome, then that will be on the menu regularly. The blue plate special, as it were, or my personal Groundhog Day, where I wake up every morning and get faced with the same challenges, just for Blake. And who knows, maybe you experience that too. The universe is prepared to give us exactly what we need to move through any spiritual challenges or blockages. And so what are everyday examples of attachment to outcome or control versus letting go? I can give you just a glimpse into my head. Why aren't you wearing a mask? Why can't you just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and get over that depression? Or my recent favorite, it's on my playlist, on repeat, driving by a political yard sign that I disagree with and raging internally, thinking of doing very unpleasant things because I don't want them to support that person or that issue, and I want to control that. Have you felt any of that rage or anger or sorrow? And I suggest that is being attached to the outcome, wanting to control your environment, and not in a good way. It hurts ourselves and in turn hurts others by lashing out or expressing anger in unhealthy ways, which I do. What is more, it is banging your head against the wall. The wall isn't damaged and it never will be. Not so much for the headbanger though. So what does it mean to let go of the outcome? To not be attached to the result? To go back to the beginning, knowing that all is in divine order and believing it. Believing and having faith that it is the path, the journey, the adventure. That is the meaning of life, not the result. So to prove it, let me ask you, how many times has something happened that you didn't want to have happen and you thought, this is terrible. This shouldn't be happening to me. Why me? Being so attached to a different outcome and raging against reality. Hurricanes, illness, death, lack of compassion. And then the storm passes, the sun rises, and you can see the gift that it truly was. Getting out of a relationship only to find a better one. Or recognize that your former partner or job was not healthy for you, or stunted your growth or held you back. Worrying is a prime example. If we are worried, not only are we not living in the moment, we are attached to whatever result that causes us the worry. So it's a compounded problem. For example, a medical test result. Who here is worried about something only to find that we misunderstood or the worst did not actually happen? What can be learned from this exercise? An exercise that is given to me and maybe you daily, if not weekly. Are we willing to do the work to actually learn and apply the lesson that we are not in control, and to fight and struggle to try and gain control is a path to misery and ultimately a losing proposition? So what are the assumptions built into the tenet that all is in divine order and letting go and letting God will bring joy? That there is joy now, in this moment, always, no matter what. That there is always something to be grateful for. Each other, the natural beauty, the adventure of life itself, and so many more things. If I have an authentically grateful heart, then I am as close as possible to knowing that all is in divine order. Yet another way to measure the truth of that idea, that letting go and letting God is the path to joy, is by what it does not bring if you try and control. Anxiety, rage, judgment, sorrow, the things that attachment to outcome brings. Not surprisingly, the universe delivered the perfect gift to me to share at just the right time in yesterday's daily word. Divine order. Beyond my human understanding, there is perfect order to all things in the universe. That means there is more than what may appear on the surface of any situation. My experiences may not always be pleasant, as transitions occur in relationships, in employment, and in life. At times, the world and its affairs may seem chaotic, but I remember that God is in all things. Mightier than any situation or circumstance is the irrefutable truth that sets me free. Affirming divine order helps me know that everything is unfolding in its way and in its time. I shape my thought patterns and belief system according to the infinite intelligence that underlies all things. So what to do about this? You have to make a choice. You must set your mind and your intention, like plugging your destination into Google Maps. When you need to get to Grand Rapids by 5 o'clock, you don't take a side trip to Flint. To truly let go, you have to have faith. Recognizing and setting your intention or mindset is always the first step, for without that, you become distracted. I become distracted. You lose your way. You end up in Flint when you wanted to be in Grand Rapids. If you are not present in the moment, then you have no chance. And as we move along this awakened path, how do you know and what can remind you that you are trying to control the outcome? As Gary Zukov taught, it's often the physical pain you feel if you pay attention, the tightness in the throat, the pain in your chest, the burning, the clenching of your teeth or of your fists. When you sense you are in this spot, there are some tools. Libby reminded us of it several weeks ago now, the breath. Breathe deeply and focus on what is real and what is truly important. Another tool that I have used, not as successfully or as often as I'd hope, is to anticipate when challenges to your need to control or have attachment to the outcome arise. For me, when I'm present, I think about that before I watch Michigan play sports. And believe it or not, it works more often than not. When you're going to that Thanksgiving dinner with someone who challenges you, spend the drive in the car, focusing on what is real, what is important. Letting go, here's something important, I think. Here's what letting go doesn't mean. It does not mean walking away and giving up. God's got this, so I don't need to participate. It doesn't mean not working for what you believe in. You do what you believe in through volunteering, praying, supporting others, compassion. You do what is yours to do in this world. You do it knowing that the very act is what is important. And you have faith that it will all unfold in a way that leads to your higher good. That it will lead our world to its higher good. That your actions in and of themselves will raise the consciousness of our world. You have led by example, and you cannot overestimate who you have touched and what impact that will have in the world. You have faith that while your good works may not change something in this very moment, there is no doubt that it is putting loving energy into the world, and that is always a good thing in and of itself. That is the result. That is the outcome. That is the path you are walking. The journey with that loving energy is the outcome in and of itself, and God will do the rest. And so it is. Amen.